Hello friends, and welcome to another Zen and the Art of Miniature Painting video. This is just an update video, just so that I can sort of keep a pulse on what's going on and let you know what I've been up to, because I've been rather quiet for the last while. You can hear a little tip tap of feet here. I have a little visitor who is being rather annoying right now. So anyway, yeah, just wanted to show you what I've been up to. I've been away from home for probably 6 weeks out of the last 8, so it's been a long time on the road. Been in Japan for most of that, and then also elsewhere in the United States across that duration. So what I've been doing in the meantime there is just keeping track of everyone else's videos, obviously visiting the various forums that I visit, and so on and so forth, and reading and that kind of thing, watching films, trying to do the hobby away from home. But when I have been home, I've tried to make the most of the time I've had and get some stuff done. And I've been quite pleased, given that I've not really been here, by what I have managed to accomplish. So, again, I'm about no pressure hobby. So for me, progress is progress, and I'll take it where I can get it. So yeah. Anyway, you can see a few things in front of us here. So. Just here to the right, this is all the stuff I finished this month. Now, some of it was painted this month, some of it was just rebased. Some of it you may recognize. So the War of Spanish Succession 6mm stuff there you've seen before. Everything on this book needs to be varnished. That's why it's stood on there, and that's why the 6mm figures are there. But I'll show you in detail what I've managed to accomplish since my last video, and then you guys can see what I've gotten up to. And then on here, on this side, we have some of the work in progress, stuff that's getting close to completion. So yeah, I will just wanted to start by saying I have some ideas for videos. I've just not really been in a position to film anything, just because of being away from home and all. But I just wanted to say that I really enjoyed Ralph Astley's video on Wargames rules. It was a 6-hour marathon. I have now watched that video, I think, a total of 5 times. I have it downloaded to my iPad. When I travel, that's my go-to on long flights. I have watched it several times now, and every time I do, it is just such great food for thought, because it is there's so many things he says in that video, most of which I agree with, of course, that just feels like it's prompting a really good conversation, and that's always the case with Ralph. I find he's oftentimes sort of has that conversation at the front end before everyone else gets there. So I know in the last few weeks there's been a lot of videos about how to monetize your hobby coming from various channels, and the funny thing is that conversation was had months ago by Ralph. So and I think the reasonable sort of opinion about it has already kind of been settled, so it feels like a lot of the videos that are coming out now are a bit late to the party in that regard. But anyway, it's always good to hear from people and hear their opinions on things. We are a community after all. So let's start by looking at what's on the in progress table first. So let me move you may have noticed these rather spiffing 10mm Pendraken Franco-Prussian War French on the painting table here, and they look quite good, I think. The reds and the blues are popping. I've opted for a slightly brighter tone in painting them. A huge inspiration for how I've painted these 10mm figures, and the 15mm figures you'll see as well later on, has been Kevin Krause of the Krause collection. His massive 15mm collection is just fantastic. Yeah, just phenomenal. And I've been looking through his back catalogue to try and capture some tips and stuff. And so one of the things he sort of said was, looking for that bright highlights, a good way to make the miniatures pop, which I knew, but it's good to see it in practice. And he did a really good video on how he paints his miniatures, and then he's been kind enough to actually respond to some of my comments asking for more details. Now for 15mm, what he does is he blocks his colours in, and then he wax them with a soft tone wash, and then he does a final highlight. I'm not sure if it's worth doing for 10mm, honestly. I think, given that these are going to be viewed from a distance, I mean, this is quite close, they look quite good, I think. I will experiment and see how we go. I just don't have a soft tone shade at the moment, but you know, we'll figure something out. The point being is, felt really inspired, so I actually cracked on with this unit of 24 Franco-Prussian War infantry. Now, you'll notice these bases. These are 50 by 25 bases, and they are what you know, you would call a, well, what was in Warhammer Fantasy a cavalry base, and also in Warhammer Ancient Battles. And so I have bags and bags and bags of these bases that I'm never going to use because, as I'll discuss later, my basing tastes have changed over time. So part of me thought, why don't I use these bases for this Franco-Prussian War project, right? Because I'll build both sides, and then what I can do is do it like this. So let me make some space. Let me zoom out a little bit so it's less focused. So like so. So the principle would be that an infantry unit would be like this, which is 15 centimeters of 150 millimeters across. I'm just a little bit concerned that it's a bit wide, so I'll be very curious to know what anyone thinks, but I'm thinking of going 4 wide, 2 ranks deep. Now when Pendraken's, I bought a army pack from Pendraken, and it seems that they give you units of 24 when I divvied the troops out and everything, but their normal packs are 30s, so I was originally thinking, well, you know, I would do bases of 10, so 5 wide, 2 deep, on these same bases. So but then I looked at Principles of War and some other rule sets, and they all seem to kind of go for a much narrower frontage unit. So I'm kind of debating whether I should go for these 50mm wide bases, which would be good in that I get to use the bases, or whether I should perhaps forego these bases and instead maybe go for something that's maybe 30mm wide, so when you add up the total frontage of 3 bases, you end up with 90mm or something like that. So I would really appreciate some feedback on that front. I'm prepared to change my opinion. I haven't based anything up yet. Currently they're just on these sort of temporary bases. So if anyone has any thoughts on that, please do let me know. I'm all ears, as they say. But yeah, these miniatures have they really come out nice. You know, 10mm is a wonderful compromise between 6 and 15, I think, because there's tons of detail on here, and the colors are they look quite sharp, don't they? They just look fantastic. The blues that you're looking at right now, to my mind, look a little bit more lustrous on camera than they do in person. They're a bit duller in person, but you know, so they're a bit darker, I should say. But yeah, just lovely miniatures, really, and a very complete range from Pendraken. So yeah, really got stuck into the Franco-Prussian War stuff. Just wanted to get a unit done, and I thought, you know, if I can grind out a unit, this total, all of this here took me maybe an hour a night for 2 nights. It's really fast. So, you know, that's me not pushing myself. That's just of an evening coming downstairs to the basement, sitting down and having a paint when I've had the time to do so. Then I've been, as I mentioned in my last in my video about 15mm stuff, I have this Carthaginian DBA army that I want to finish off. Now in the meantime, and I'll show this to you in a bit, I actually picked up L'Art de la Guerre, the rule set, which is DBM derivative, I suppose. And the basing standard for that's slightly different. So in other words, everything's double based. So you'll see here that it's 40mm wide for 15mm, and this is what, 30 deep. And it actually looks far more pleasing to the eye, I think, to have a slightly bulkier spear unit than to just have a single little dash of troops, you know, a little line. So I'm when I started painting up this little baggie of 8 African spear, or Libby Phoenician spear, I decided to go 2 ranks of 4 for the miniatures, and they've come out rather nice. I've had a go, inspired by Mr. Krause's collection, at some freehand on the shields. They've come out okay. I'm not too pleased with the blue one here, but I think everything else looks alright. Especially at distance, it looks fine. You know, there's a little pseudo horse over there and a skull or whatever. But I tried my best to kind of have a go at doing some freehand. I've never done it before, but you know, I felt inspired. I thought it'll potentially look unique, or I suppose it'll look, you know, it's potentially more quicker in the sense that I don't have to fiddle with transfers and all that jazz. but also you know, I don't have transfers, and ordering them and everything is a bit of a hassle. So and I don't want to wait. I just wanted to get on with it. So quite happy with how these have turned out. So what I've done in this one is, this is actually the final rank here, the final placement of the rank. And then what I'm going to do is do the next set of troops, put them on the back, and then finish up the basing, right? And then they'll be done. So I popped out another unit of, or another baggie of 8 spearmen, also from Essex, ready to go. And having a good time painting them, really enjoying it. Again, not taking me an awful amount of time. I haven't done any washes or anything funny with these. I've just literally put the colors on and done a little bit of highlighting, and that's basically it. So very happy with that. And again, it's quite quick. So 15mm has a sort of wonderful benefit of being quite fast to paint. So I'm really enjoying that, and it's one of those projects that I've really wanted to get done over the years, that 15mm Carthaginian army. Just because it's something I've always wanted, you know. Then I did some Fire and Fury 15mm ACW. So again, bag of 8, again Essex miniatures, and these were the sort of loading guys in full rig. I have a book which is a uniform guide for the American Civil War, and I found these blue cap, blue trouser, grey jacket design as a very early war kind of official uniform. Honestly, looking at it right now, I think I might repaint the caps to grey just so they don't look quite so garish. They look a bit kind of out of place, I think. I might leave the cuffs and the collars blue. The skin tone I'm not massively happy with either. It seems to have come out very pale. This is coat d'arms flesh, which is very, very pale. And I'm figuring for guys who are out in the field, especially in the south where it's quite warm and sunny, they're probably going to be a bit more tanned on the face and hands, but we'll see. Anyway, so I over a weekend, well, not even a weekend really, just over a few evenings, I smashed out these guys, again very quick and easy. I used these Games Workshop regiment bases from way back as a sort of staging post to put them on with just some double-sided tape, and you know, paint them black, give them a quick dry brush, a heavy dry brush with grey, just to raise the detail, and then just get on with it. And they've come out quite nice. So I've sort of gathered together the sort of static poses of guys reloading their muskets, and then I just need a few more. I need like one more guy in a kepi, which is this dude. He's an NCO, I think. He's going to be in this little gap over there, and then I have a hatted fella as well for the other for the hatted guys that I'm painting up right now. So that'll bring me up to a total of 6 additional bases for my Confederate army in 15mm. And you know, I think one of the things that I'm trying to do to keep myself not motivated, it's not the right word, but to make it feel like I'm creating some hobby progress, even when my time to actually paint is severely curtailed, is to make sure that I am doing things that have like a very good dopamine payoff, right? So I know that I can paint up these 8 figures very quickly, so doing small chunks of like 8 figures where I have an immediate payoff at the end, and I'm like, look, they're done now, I don't have to worry. The only thing these guys need left to do now is I put a wash on them, sort of strong tone wash, and I've been experimenting with that, but I think all I got to do now is, like I said, fix those kepis, change them from blue to grey, and then probably just smack a bit of a highlight on them once they're all based up and everything, because I think one of the things that Kevin points out on his channel is that there's really no point in highlighting every inch of the model, because you're not going to see it, right? Like, the only thing we're really going to see when we look at this unit is in this kind of, let me zoom out a bit so you can get a sense, is this sort of elevation here. You're going to be seeing the sort of edges of units, right? So like this way, and this way. Like no one really, you know, picks them up and really looks at them. Like it's just a bit silly really for 15mm. But anyway, I just wanted to share that with you. So again, there's some more ACW stuff coming along nicely, and my idea here is that I can just churn through those little baggies of troops as I go pretty quickly. Right, so unfortunately I don't have one of those cool turntable thingies that a lot of hobbyists have where they show off their miniatures. I don't have anything like that, and I don't even have a light box. I left that in the UK. So what I will do here is just give you a sense of what I've painted. Apologies for the quality of the the camera footage. It's not going to be great, but it's just to give you a sense of you know, what I've done this month, and then you know, just so that you can get a sense. I'll try and put some white paper just so that it's a bit easier to see and a bit more well lit. These are 7 Years' War Austrian Grenzers from Eagle Figures. They painted up quite nicely. Not my favorite figures in the world, I will admit that. I think these ones are fine, but some of the other stuff that they produce are not so good. So I have some Prussian light infantry von Kleist Pandours, and they are not quite as nice looking. Yeah, they painted up okay. I did them in these very garish red uniforms of the Slavonisch Gladiskaner Grenzers, because I thought it looked quite striking and it was something a little bit different. I was also, as I've said in the last few hobby update videos, I've really been trying to work on my reds, and so this was a good opportunity to play with red as a colour. And they've turned out pretty okay, actually. I'm quite happy with them. The only thing I'm not so keen on with them is their skin tones, which to my mind, because of the red uniforms, makes them look a little bit ruddy, actually. So I may try and just, before I varnish these, just give them a slightly lighter touch to the face, just so that they don't quite look as as beetroot faced. It's not as apparent probably on the video, but in person it's rather noticeable, the sort of red facedness. But yeah, they were a pleasure to paint. And again, you know, I decided to just I have a pack of 12, so I picked out 6 and had a go, and I was quite pleased with the outcome. And it was a nice weekend's work, you know. So no real complaints there. So that's 7 Years' War done on a whim. Next up are some Roman auxiliary archers. Now I didn't paint these this time, except for this element on the right. I painted up 10 of these black tree design Roman auxiliary archers, and they've come out rather nice, I think. Let me put them in a position where you can get a closer look. Yeah, these figures are actually really nice. I decided to do them in sort of greenish colour, and they were actually, again, just one of these weekend projects, you know, the 10, not just these 2, just kind of rattle through a nice uniform unit. Yeah, came out quite nicely. And then I've been rebasing up some of my older early Imperial Roman stuff to elements rather than single bases. My tastes have just changed over time, and I don't play Warhammer Ancient Battles anymore. So, and even if I were to play it, I think I'd just play with elements instead. I think that elements look better. So I've gone for 60 by 30 bases for these light skirmishing units, and then I have some bow units that are more formed, which are 6 to a base, 60 by 60, which are in the process of being based up. So you'll see them shortly once they're finished. But I figured what I can do in the time when I don't really have the impetus or the concentration to focus on painting painting properly, I can just get basing done, because it's a relatively mundane task that actually adds a lot of value to a miniature. So as you can see, I mean, these guys look wonderful right now on their new bases. So that's been an ongoing project. So I've finished up a lot of 15mm basing, my ancient stuff, and then I've also started the process of rebasing my 28mm ancients stuff as well. I haven't decided if I'm going to rebase my Vikings from single to multi-bases yet. I'll deal with that later, but for the moment I'm just focusing on the Romans. I'm quite pleased with the outcome. I think they look rather snappy. Now these are Steve Sala miniatures from War Games Foundry on the left there, the Oriental Archers. Then in the center you've got the black tree design, and then on the right you've got more Steve Sala. And I will say that you can see a slight improvement in my painting, I think, between the center figures and the ones on the flanks. But then there is 20 years of painting between them, so it kind of makes sense, doesn't it? Anyway, so that's the early Imperial Roman repaint, or rebasing and painting. And then also as part of the rebasing process, I went and rebased these Cretan archers, which I had done again in the early 2000s. These are gripping beast figures, and you can tell that from a different era in my painting style. They're a little bit different. For instance, like this chap in the center here has eyes painted on, bug eyes, I think. Not a huge fan of that. I stopped doing eyes shortly after this unit because I think they look a little bit ridiculous, unless they're done absolutely perfectly, and I don't have the patience or the eye for it, to be honest. But yeah, rebase these. These are also on the skirmish style basis. So 6 bases of Cretan archers, 12 figures in total. Haven't really done much actual painting on them. I just rebased them. There's some chipping and stuff from time. You know, time that's just gone by, and with metal figures, it's always a concern. Yeah, quite chuffed with these. I mean, given that they were painted 20 years ago, I think they look pretty okay. And they're quite versatile Cretan archers. You can use them in successor armies, you can use them in, you know, Roman armies, Punic armies. You can use them in pretty much anything you want for a relatively large period of time. So yeah, I've got these now. They're done, and that's one less thing to worry about. Again, a nice, quick and easy project, just doing some basing. I've tried to universalize the basing across the board with my ancients, just so that everything can kind of play together. I think if an army is emphatically, like say in the desert or something, I might change the way the bases look, but I'm kind of settled on a relatively generic basing style, just so everything kind of looks coherent, even if you know, even if it's not 100% geographically so. So what I mean by that is anything Mediterranean should look roughly the same, but once we start moving into, like, if we say desert, then I would probably want to play a bit with the basing style. But I mean, how many people actually fight in the desert, you know, in the ancient period? Probably not that many. You tend to fight over fertile land and land that has value. So there's always that counter argument. But anyway, so this is the Cretans. Again, 28mm gripping beast figures. Alright, and then these are the, those who are familiar with the channel will remember that I was working on some early war Germans. These are they, based up and ready for varnishing. My basing style that I use for them is the Sydney Roundwood style, black to grey and then dark brown to yellow brown patches. With I use bricks, model bricks, that adds a bit of dash of colour to the miniatures. I've based them up on 25mm round bases, except for the big man, which is over here. So he's the lieutenant that will lead this platoon. I put him on a hexagonal base just for ease of identification. In the early war, it's not so difficult because he's carrying a pistol and a nice map case. But as things go on, and you know, they start carrying SMGs and so on, it becomes a bit of an issue. But also, you want to think about distance, right? How do you identify people at distance? So yeah, as you can see, I've opted for single bases in the main, but I think what I'll do potentially with the next batch of Germans, will start doing some 40mm round bases with maybe 2 figures on, or maybe 60mm rounds with 3 figures on. I know that most people who play Chain of Command or whatever, or platoon level games at any rate, will single base because, you know, it's easier for figure removal and so on. But I think that aesthetically it looks preferable to me to go for the sort of multi bases. It just looks good. For the squad MG34, which is here, I've opted for you can just see him there with his ammunition carrier. I've opted for single bases so that they are very much a sort of squad asset. And then for the static fire MG, which is this one here, this is the beautiful black G design Germans, really characterful, fantastic kit. I've opted for a square base so that the arcs of fire are very clearly 45 degrees to the front, or maybe if it's like a corridor fire, it's to the front, you know. But yeah, this was particularly fun to do because it was sort of represented as sort of, not a diorama, but something kind of adjacent to a diorama. And as you can see, what I've done here is I've opted for tonal variance in the tunics. I've kept everybody pretty much with, well, I've done a mix and match really. What I've done is I've done grey trousers on many of them, and then a few with field grey trousers. And then I've done some of the chaps, like the fellow over here and there, I've done them with the more reed green tunics, so the more early slightly green colour, and then I've done him with an actual Feldgrau tunic, and it's come out quite nice. And that tonal variance just shifts the palette of the squad a little bit, so that it looks sort of more interesting to, so it's a little bit more interesting to look at. So you can see like the fellow at the back here with the side cap. He's doing double Feldgrau duty. You know, top and bottom. Likewise, the guy with the rolled up sleeves over here. But for the most part, I've opted for grey trousers and then a tunic colour. So there's a Feldgrau tunic colour, but then there's a reed green tunic colour. So I've tried to kind of keep things interesting. I suppose one of the boring sides with this sort of palette is that it can get quite dull, where everything is kind of the same. So I've opted for sort of a light touch of variation, but with everything still looking like it's cohesive. I've more or less nailed down my German painting recipe now, and I'm very pleased with it. These weren't all painted to the same recipe. Some are more stark in terms of their highlights than others, and I think I prefer the stark highlights. So I think a particular favourite of mine are those two at the back, where, let me see if I can show you what I mean. You can really see the folds of the cloth on their uniforms, which I quite like, and from a distance it looks really nice. And then these guys with the guns as well, they have that same starkish highlight, which is pleasing to the eye from a distance. So that's the Germans. Still rattling along through that. I'm almost at a platoon strength at this point, but again, I haven't got any opposition for them. The Poles just aren't big enough yet, but we'll get there soon enough. And then bonus is this Soviet naval officer, lieutenant I suppose, which I showed in one of my earlier videos, but he's now done as well. So I've opted for the same basing style. I haven't put any greenery on his base yet. I'll put a dab on there to finish him up, but he's come along nicely, and this is where I was talking about trying to create the sense of textural differences between blacks. So I used a more sort of grey highlight here, and then a sort of slightly bluish one at the bottom, just to create a sense of difference in material. And he's come out quite nice. I like his face and his little medals and so on. So yes, looking rather sharp. So that's everything World War II at the moment, and then there's just one more piece to show you. Alright, last but certainly not least are some Eldar Dire Avengers for Warhammer 40,000. So I don't really play Warhammer 40k at all, the modern iteration of the game at all. For me, if I want to play it, I'll probably play 3rd edition or Rogue Trader or something. But I have these figures. I have several boxes of these actually. They're quite nice sculpts, and I just felt like painting them one weekend, so I did. I went in and I didn't spend too much time on them. Did some nice stark highlights to really make the little raised areas jump, and yeah, got them done in about a weekend's time. You can see there, they are looking pretty good. So yeah, just went through them, did them in a pretty standard style. Wasn't too happy with the way the white came out on the helmets. I think it looks a bit chalky. But you know, that's just one of those things. Sometimes it happens. And then, but the cloth, the loin cloth here, I'm quite pleased with. I think it's got a lot of definition to it, and the highlights look quite good. Gives a sense of motion and flow. And then the only other part that I'm not massively chuffed with are the crests. So let me try and get you close to that. So I tried to do a sort of yellow and black crest, but I didn't want the yellow to be too bright, and I suspect that may have been a mistake. So it's kind of sitting at a mustard ochre colour at the moment, and I'm not sure if I like that. The light here isn't doing us any favours, but yeah, it's just a little bit duller than it probably should be. I'm not sure if a brighter yellow would be better or not. And I suspect what will happen is if I repainted it, then I wouldn't be pleased with a very bright yellow. So I'm going to kind of leave it as it is, I think. But yeah, I mean, I thought it came out pretty okay. I'm not hugely into playing sci-fi anymore these days, but I have a small collection that I'm going to retain. I'm probably going to offload the rest of it. I just felt like painting these because they've had them for a long time, and I really felt like they would be something fun to do that's a little bit different. And as I mentioned, a large portion of the hobby for me is, you know, doing what I feel like doing. And one weekend, it was a Thursday or something like that, I had a look at what was in the cupboard in the closet area, and I picked this box up and decided to do it. So no regrets there. And you know, they're part of the collection now, and they can be used for anything. It doesn't have to be Warhammer 40,000. It can be anything space related. So yep, pretty happy with the way they've turned out. So they're ready for varnishing and sending off to the display cabinet. And that's pretty much everything I have to show for the last few months. So hopefully soon you'll see some of this the stuff over here taking shape, and then I'll be able to give you another update. But I certainly feel like I'm on a bit of a mini scale binge at the moment, which is good, because it feels like a lot of progress very fast. So I'm hoping to get you guys an update very soon. And then also, as I mentioned earlier, Ralph's video has given me a lot of things to think about, and I've been writing some thoughts down. So I'll probably be doing a video about that soon, in response to his video soon. Probably not 6 hours long though. I don't think I quite have that stamina in me, but yeah. Anyway, I hope you're all well, and that the winter isn't biting too hard if you're in the northern hemisphere, and that summer's lovely if you're in the southern. Take care.